IVM.
Think of the time before this pandemic when classrooms were a thing. I want you to imagine a classroom session. What do you visualize? What do you see? Do you see a teacher or a trainer or a facilitator at the center speaking and students, employees or learners listening? If yes, then that's passive learning. Hi, I am Prashant Uttekar, a learning enthusiast, and you are listening to the Relearning podcast. And today I'm making an attempt to simplify active learning. Active learning simply means you participate, collaborate with others, and apply these concepts in real world. You know that our brain is very smart, so much so that it decides what information to retain and what to discard. So, when something new is introduced to the brain, unless there is a reference or foundation, our brain will not retain that information. For example, if I tell you that Google was originally called as Backrub, our brain will have a reference to Google. I'm sure everybody uses Google, and hopefully you will retain this information. At the same time, if I tell you about a new life forms in volcanoes, it's interesting, but you may or may not recall this specific update, and it is based on your brain's decision to retain or discard this information. Active learning as a concept has been around since early 90s, and it has various methodologies. All are centered around the learner as compared to the passive learning concept where the teacher and the teaching method is at the center. Corporates seem to have adopted active learning quite efficiently, though these concepts can easily be used in any school and college's classrooms too for most of the topics. Some of the elements of active learning are like sending a pre-read or a prerequisite about the session much in advance, having a trivia or a poll before or during the session, peer and group discussions on topics or complex problems or a case study to be solved, a debrief or a follow-up discussion on the topic. This approach keeps the learner more involved and active with the topic or a problem at hand. Learner's brain is keeping with the idea or new information for a little longer and getting various perspectives in few minutes, which means brain is trying to create new pathways, which means learning is happening. Did you know that sitting in a row to learn is a very old Victorian concept? And with such amazing technology, that concept has not changed. Well, in one way, we have to thank this pandemic to really push active learning in schools, colleges, and corporates. Do reflect on how you are learning at school, colleges, and offices right now. What has changed in last 2 years? Has your kid's school improvised a lot to deliver various concepts in virtual setup? If yes, that's active learning. If you notice, educational institutes are exploring various ways to engage the virtual learner. The traditional row sitting in the classroom has been broken. There are breakout sessions within the large sessions to have discussion with peers and group discussions on case studies and so on. There are literally no boundaries for learning. Global educational institutes have adopted virtual learning as a way forward. And you could learn almost everything sitting where you are at and collaborate with anyone across the world. When last did you learn something new? Was it using active learning or passive learning concept? Do share your experience with me. If you like this episode, do check out the rest of the episodes of the Relearning podcast and other interesting podcasts on IVM Podcasts app or website. You can follow us on social media via IVM Podcasts on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter and LinkedIn. If you want to reach out to me, I am Prashant Uttekar on Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn and DA_curious_ONE on Instagram. Until next time, this is Prashant Uttekar. Hope you learn better. Bye.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On The Habit Coach, Ashton speaks with Ken Honda, Zen millionaire and best-selling author in Japan. His new book, Happy Money, The Japanese Art of Making Peace with Your Money, teaches us how to improve our relationship with money. On Cyrus Says, founder and CEO of Finway, Rachit Chawla joins Cyrus to share some great financial advice on low-risk and no-risk yields. In the current power vacuum that exists in Afghanistan, will Russia step in? On All Things Policy, Aditya and Ruturaj seek the opinion of Ivan Klesch. On The Habit Coach, Ashton chalks out the differences between a workaholic and a high performer. And on Smarter with Sid, Siddharth analyzes if the back-to-theater experience will change consumer behavior and attention span. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. That is the most helpful thing that you could do to help us out. And finally, this week, we'd like to thank our sponsors on the network, Cred, Bank of Baroda, Quarter, CoinSwitch, Kuber, and Intel vPro. We really do appreciate the support. This is what makes it possible.
A wise man once said, traveling, it makes you speechless, then turns you into a storyteller.
Well, listen to such travel stories and experiences exploring India on the Musafir Stories with us, Saif and Faiza.
Catch us on the IVM website, app, or wherever you get your podcasts from.